I guess it's good morning now. Good morning. It's an absolute privilege and a joy to join the Board of Advisors for AIESEC. And I've been here for the last few hours watching all of you running around trying to be prepared for our conversation. But I wanted to first of all say that whenever I get an opportunity to speak to young people, I'm always excited by the fact that whatever hope our nation has, it's dependent on your capacity as leaders. And so today I want to talk about a concept that I believe is not just close to my heart, that it should be close to all of us. And it's the concept of a sincere Sri Lankan leader. A sincere Sri Lankan leader. Sri Lanka deserves sincere leadership. In every field, in every society that needs change in our communities and in our country, we need leaders who would be sincere. And that's what I want to talk about. But before we get to that, let's just talk about what incredible leadership is. I've been sent right to the end of my slides, okay. So when we think of an incredible leader, we always think about those who have a vision grander than the current reality. I'm sure all of you have a vision, something that you want to accomplish, not just for yourself, but for our nation. But then they have the ability to inspire. They have the ability not just to inspire people to get involved, they have the ability to act. And they go beyond that, they build those around them. Everybody around you, if you're an incredible leader, is better for it. You don't leave them the way they were, you actually have helped them raise their game as well. It's not just about you or me, it's about everybody we work with. But incredible leaders also change society for the better. When they are coming to the end of their life and they look back at their society, they know we made a difference. Our society is better. We led with integrity and excellence. But that's not all. They create sustainable change. It's not just, oh, during our time things were great. It's like we made sustainable change. From generation to generation, we have made an impact. But then incredible leaders want to ignite belief and purpose in the next generation to say, you can do better. I constantly tell my teams, the best is yet to come. And one day one young man came to me and said, Prashant, when is this best coming? If it's always yet to come. And the concept is, the best is yet to come indicates that the next generation will do better than us if we do the right thing now. They will build on your shoulders. And so from generation to generation, things will be better if you do your best today as a leader. That's why we say the best is yet to come. So these are elements of extraordinary leadership. But what I want to talk about is not just being extraordinary or incredible leaders, which I'm sure all of you want to be and you are turning out to be that. But what I really want to talk about is this concept of sincere leadership. Honest, passionate, authentic. You're the real deal. You really care. You want to see change. So I'm using this acronym, saying leading with heart is the best way I can summarize what sincere leadership is. And so the first heart, the acronym H, is humble leaders. They never stop learning. They never say, I'm too good to learn. They're always looking at how society is changing, the world is changing, and they're saying, how can we be better as society changes? At the same time, they're accountable. They're never above accountability. They say, I may be the boss, I may be the one who's leading, but I am accountable for results. I'm accountable to ensure that we get the job done. But they're also responsible, not credit-seeking. And that they're teachable. Their egos haven't got so big with success that they feel that no one can correct them. No one can tell them that this path you're taking is wrong. Are you still teachable? Sometimes what happens is when you are successful as a leader, when you have accomplished certain things, you really believe that you know it all. And that's the end of your journey. And finally, it's the self-reflection of knowing when you have made a mistake. We are all bound to make mistakes as leaders. But knowing that you have made a mistake, learning from the mistakes and moving forward. For me, these are the core elements of sincere leadership, the heart of a true sincere leader. I want to give you examples of this. Many of you may not have heard, you're too young for this, but in the United States, there was an organization called Blockbuster. They were the giants in entertainment. They have over 9,000 houses of places where you could go rent DVDs. They were worth millions at the time. And there was a small company called Netflix. And they used to just post DVDs to their subscribers and get it back. And so they went to Blockbuster and said, we really like what you're doing, but would you like to buy over Netflix for $15 million? Blockbuster laughed them out of the room and said, what do you have to offer? And Blockbuster refused to change. They refused to be humble and learn from the changing realities. Many years later, in 2010, Blockbuster ended up being broke. 9,000 stores across the United States, they ended up having none, and they went broke. Today, Netflix they continue to adapt. They learned the art of streaming. They learned the art of getting to the customer. They innovated, they stayed humble, they stayed nimble, and as a result of that, they're worth $400 billion today. They almost sold themselves for $50 million to Blockbuster. Today they've outlived. And the reason behind that is sincere leadership. Number one, they were humble enough to keep learning, to keep evolving, and never think that they were better than everybody else. For the second one, talking about accountability. In the United States, the number one painkiller brand at this time was Tylenol. In 1982, in Chicago, they found out that a few people died of cyanide poisoning that had got into the Tylenol capsules. Just a few people. It was not the company's fault, but still, the CEO of the company decided to call back 31 million bottles of Tylenol back in. They lost $100 million. At that time, it was a huge loss. People thought they'll never recover. He said, it's our fault, we need to be accountable, we have to be responsible to the people we serve. Many years later, they lost trust temporarily, but because they were accountable, because they were held responsible for what they did, today they're back as the number one painkiller, number one in the market. Because they stood up and said, we made a mistake. It was not exactly our mistake, but we are responsible, so we want to be held accountable. And today they're back as the number one in their market. Talking about taking responsibility and not the credit of sincere leaders. I heard this beautiful story of the former President Abdul Kalam of India. He talks about this man, Professor Satish Dhawan. When he was part of the SLV rocket launch, Abdul Kalam was one of the engineers, and they were hoping that this was a success for the Indian space program. Unfortunately, after all those years of work, the rocket didn't even launch, it exploded. It was an embarrassment. It was supposed to go to the atmosphere, it ended up in the Bay of Bengal. And Abdul Kalam and the team were embarrassed, and they felt that they had let down the entire nation. But then Professor Satish Dhawan said, it's okay, I'm your boss, you all failed, but I should take the responsibility. And he went for the press conference and he spoke. A few years later, Abdul Kalam and the team got back together, they worked on it, and they had success in 1980. They managed to launch, the Indian space program was off the ground. The world started taking notice of India. At this moment, Professor Satish Dhawan could have said, now it's time for me to take credit. I went and took the battering when you all failed. But he said, son, you all go. Send the engineers and said, you all go meet the press and you all take the credit. Sincere leaders look to take responsibility, not the credit. Very often in our society, in our own nation, no one wants to take the responsibility. But everybody will be clamoring to take the credit. If you're opening a brand new building, or if you're launching a new department, if you're creating an innovation, people will run to take the credit, but very few people will stick around and take responsibility to see the job done. I was watching how your team was clamoring around, trying to figure out this video and things like that, but I could see people say, I want to take responsibility, I want to make this done. You could say, this person's fault, this person's fault, I don't care, I'll take responsibility. Then, the other element of sincere leadership is that you will remain teachable. Are you still teachable? My young friends, you're still in university and you know the more you learn, you realize the more you don't know. Always remain humble and want to be teachable. The day you stop learning and the day you stop being teachable is the day you die, a metaphoric death. This example comes from Microsoft. Satya Nadella in 2014 took over Microsoft. Microsoft was on a downward curve. And as he did an assessment of all of Microsoft, he found out the biggest issue Microsoft faced was that they had a know-it-all attitude. They were arrogant. They had already dominated in the market. Every department felt like we know it all. We are the best. And that arrogance had got into the system and they were now failing. And he changed the mantra from don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. We have to remain a desire to learn, a desire to be teachable. If you can hold on to that for the rest of your life, you will be always sharp. You will always be sincere and effective as a leader. It's important, best leaders are not know-it-alls. The best leaders are learn-it-alls, constantly learning. I love working with some amazing business leaders in Sri Lanka, and some of them are in their mid-60s, late 60s. I even spoke to a leader from Janashakti who's in his 90s. And what I realized is some of the most effective leaders, even at an older age, they're still teachable. They're learning from the younger generation about technology. They're learning from people who have insights that they don't. Are you still teachable? Will you remain teachable? And finally, it's the ability to be self-reflective. Sincere leaders have that ability. When you make a mistake, which you're bound to do, we all do you acknowledge it? Our country has a huge challenge. We never acknowledge. It was not my fault. I didn't know about it. It was this department, that person, not me. Do you have the capacity to acknowledge? But second, do you apologize for the fault? Do you have the ability to say, we are so sorry, we made a mistake? But not just apologize, do you have the ability to reflect and say, where did we go wrong, and how do we create systems that we don't fall to the same mistake over and over again? Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So do you have the ability to create systems to not make the same mistakes? If you have this, these four components help you become that sincere leader. And if you start now, you will be the leaders that truly transform society. You have the heart, and you're leading with the heart of a sincere leader. Sri Lanka is a beautiful nation. And what I love about my country, I'll never leave Sri Lanka. I have the privilege of leading organizations in 21 countries. We started off in Sri Lanka, we'll never leave, because I love the sincerity of our people. The average person is worth fighting for. Why do I say we're sincere? Since it's late in the morning or early in the morning, why don't you read out with me? These are some surveys done of foreigners. Tell me about Sri Lankans. And these are the 8 things or 9 things that came out consistently. I've hosted people from Latin America, from North America, from Africa, from all across Asia who come to Sri Lanka, and I too send this survey to them and say, tell us about Sri Lankans. What do you think is unique about us? And number one they say is your warm hospitality, your genuine smiles as a nation, your simplicity and your kindness, the average person. Your resilience through hardship. You have been through hell and back, from civil wars to tsunamis, to natural disasters, to Easter bombings, you name it, but you're still resilient, you're still smiling, and you're still fighting for a better future. your ability to rise again and again. And not just that, your deep respect for others, your generosity, even when you have little. Once, I read a post once that said, Sri Lanka may have 1,000,000 problems, but generosity is not one of them. If ever there's a flood, you go to a Food City or a Keels and you try to buy stuff to give, most of the time, it's empty, where people have already given so much. We're incredibly generous. But we have a strong sense of community, and we respect our elders, and there is a sense of humility. This is not those in higher elite society. I'm talking about the average Sri Lankan. We are a sincere people, deserves sincere leadership. And I hope and pray that all of you will grow up to being incredible and sincere leaders, that you will lead with heart. Sri Lanka deserves better, and I hope and pray that you will be what our nation needs. Let me close with a small illustration. Can I have every one of you give me your index fingers and hold it like this? Okay. And I want you to say, you might say, well, can this really happen in our society? And I want you to try and just hit each index finger with the other as hard as you can. This is just one person saying, I'm going to try and be sincere in what I do, in what I lead. It's not making much of a difference. But I want you to know, as you're doing this, you manage to inspire a second community. I want to get two fingers in there. And you're starting to see a roll-on effect. And many countries have said this. When it became culture, leaders shaped culture, and culture started changing. It became the norm. And then I want you to bring 3 fingers in 3 corners of the island saying, hey, maybe that's possible. The leadership culture is now turning out to be society's culture. Let's keep going. I know it's 1 o'clock, almost 12 to 15 in the morning. 4 fingers in 4 corners of the country. You're saying, can this actually make a difference? Is it possible? I'm just trying my best, but will it actually make a difference? And finally, if you put all fingers together, all hands together, you put it right, come on. So most countries that said, oh, it's not happening, but when they had the key leaders set the standard and set the momentum, there's an awakening of society. So I hope and pray that you will be that leader. Excellent, but sincere. And you will set the standards. I hope you have a great rest of the program. Thank you for having me. I look forward to serving on the Board of Advisors in the year to come. Thank you very much.